Okay, so what is this piece now?
So this is actually the radiosonde. That's the instrument that is at the bottom of the balloon. It hangs about 75 to 100 feet below the balloon. As it goes up through the atmosphere, it detects the temperature, humidity, the pressure, has a GPS sensor in there, and depending on the movement of the device, we are able to compute the wind speed and direction.
Okay, and so this helps to, what does this help determine?
By collecting all that information, we're able to assess the atmosphere and kind of compare that to what we were expecting it to be, determine if it's worse or better, more unstable or more stable, and that will kind of give us an idea of what the event is going to pan out for the rest of the night.
Absolutely, and so we saw that there was confirmed tornadoes in Louisiana and Mississippi, and that's the system that is heading our way. So basically, once this balloon heads up into the atmosphere and gives you back those readings, are you able to determine whether that's still the threat here or if it's any different, any less?
That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to assess the environment that the storms are coming into. Is the wind shear exactly what we were expecting? Is the instability what we were expecting? Better or worse? And then we kind of compare the other balloons that are going up at the same time. Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta, Georgia, Mobile, Alabama. We compare those as well, and we make sure that we have the best picture of the atmosphere we can when we're trying to make the decisions when storms come in.
Absolutely. Okay, so what is this thing filled with?
We fill it actually up with hydrogen. Helium is a little bit more expensive than hydrogen. Hydrogen is plentiful, and so we use hydrogen. It's lighter than air. We fill it up with about 1,500 grams of hydrogen, 1.5 kilograms, and that gives us the lift that gets it up to the top of the atmosphere, all the way up to about 20 to 22 miles high up in the air, over 100,000 feet.
So, does it go up through this building, or do you pull it out here?
We're going to bring it outside, and we'll release it here at the Shelby County Airport. Of course, we have to check for aircraft, make sure there aren't any aircraft active in the pattern at the time when we release the balloon. Once that's clear, we let it go, and the dish up on top of the building is what tracks it, relays the information into the office, and we can see that, and we'll probably see that in a little bit. Real time as the data's coming in, we can see what's going on in the atmosphere.
That is so cool. So I was a little bit amused. I saw this thing sitting on the counter, and I almost for a second thought that it was like a joke because it's like slightly styrofoam and then there's the piece of plastic. So how does this thing, I guess this metal piece here, does the reading?
This is the temperature sensor right up in here, and we don't want to touch it and get our oils on it or anything like that. We want it to be a pure sensing of the atmosphere. Underneath the cup on the bottom side, I doubt you'll be able to see it, but there's a little sensor up inside there that detects the moisture level. Of course, we've got a cup on it to keep the rain from falling on it. We want to measure the moisture content of the air, not the moisture content of any water droplets that might be falling.
So neat. And then this feeds that information back from the balloon as it goes up to the sky, and it feeds it back directly to y'all.
Of course, I mentioned it has GPS. Of course, it's got to have a radio on there as well, so that the dish that's up on the top of our building here can track that signal and receive it and send it into the building for processing.
That is so cool, and it's lightweight, so it'll, I guess it has to be to get up as high as it's going.
That's right. It's very lightweight. A lot of times people will say, "Hey, can we put a GoPro camera on there?" And the answer is we'd love to, but no, because the way the system is calibrated, we have to do the balloon launch the same every time. It has to go up at a certain rate, and our balloon is only capable of supporting a certain amount of gas, so it's kind of calibrated just specifically for this purpose. So we don't want to add any extra weight to it. It's a great, I'd love to be able to do that sometime. Of course, GoPros can get pretty expensive. We don't know where it's going to come down. We do not track it once it pops, and it'll get up to about, like I said, 20 miles up in the atmosphere and pop. There's a parachute, a little orange hefty bag that'll be below the balloon.
Okay.
And that will slow the descent of the instrument, and it won't hurt anybody, and it might wind up in the woods somewhere, or it could wind up in a populated area. People can return that to us. There's a self-addressed return envelope that's strapped on one of the arms there, and if anybody finds it, they can just stick it in that bag, and it helps recoup some of the costs of that instrument. We're able to reuse it and reduce the costs.
Wow. So how frequent do they come back? Most of the time, or
About
occasionally?
20 to 25% of the time, I understand. I was just actually looking on my Facebook page. It was 3 years ago today. We had a weather balloon launched from here. It landed on the roof of the Atlanta forecast office on that same day. And I don't know how often that happens, but that was certainly one of the little neat things that can happen. Depending on how fast the winds are aloft, that jet stream, if it's 150, 160 miles per hour, easily we could make Atlanta before the balloon pops and then descends and reaches the ground again.
I mean, I think that's a question a lot of people have had, over the years when you let balloons go at a birthday party, like how far do they travel or where do they come down? So y'all get to answer that question.
Right.
And also get a reading on the weather.
That's right. Now we know how far away it is when it pops, but after that, the equipment shuts down and we just let it go because the quality of the data is just not the same as that instrument is kind of tumbling down through the atmosphere as when it's being lifted up with the balloon.
Okay. And so this is the rest of the contraption. So this is the parachute that goes up with it.
Right.
And then the balloon is being filled all the way up here.
It's going to be about, let me get over there for a frame of reference. I'm 6 feet tall and my arm span is about 6 feet as well. So it's going to be about 6 feet tall and about 6 feet wide when it's full. By the time it gets up into the atmosphere, it'll be just about as big as this building because it expands. So it's very, it's kind of basic. You think about it, we've got all the pressure down here at the bottom of the atmosphere squeezing it in. At the top of the atmosphere, there's very little pressure. So the gas pressure inside that balloon just keeps expanding till it's very large. And then it bursts into little shreds of latex and it descends back down.
Wow.
We use a very simple string to tie things off. There's nothing really elaborate about it. I'm just bleeding out the leftover hydrogen right there.
So that's how much we're filling it up now,
Yeah.
and then it expands in here.
Right, that's right. And we've got a simple string that ties it off, and then we'll connect the string from the balloon to the train. We call this the instrument train. I'm glad it's not my turn to tie it off, because I totally messed that up. There are some days when it's so windy, you may have seen some during blizzards out in the Midwest, where folks actually have to do a two-person balloon release, where one person will hold the balloon and the other person will hold the instrument and basically have to throw the instrument up into the air as the balloon passes by them because the wind is blowing so fast. I personally haven't had to have any two-person releases. We don't have to do that frequently here.
I have one.
You have one?
Thankfully, just one.
Can I touch it?
No, actually we don't.
Okay.
If you get your oils on there,
Oh.
it might cause it to break early.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, it's not like a pure laboratory kind of purity type thing, but we just want to make sure the balloon goes as high up into the air as it can
And
before
keep it as accurate as
before it
possible.
releases. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we do a quick phone call in back into the office and make sure the system is reading a good signal from the instrument. Every once in a while, the instruments aren't perfect and we might have some issues with it. This one was a little bit balky at the start, but it checked out okay. So we're going to see, are we good?
Yeah.
All right, good, good. We've got good GPS and we're ready to go. Now, on the days when the weather's not good, you really don't have to worry about too much about aircraft in the area because they don't want to be flying around when there's thunderstorms coming and all that. So I'm not sure how good your light detection is. Watch yourself, don't get hold still for just a second. But once you get caught up in the string and go up with the balloon, that really wouldn't help.
So neat.
So this is probably going to come going from left to right. The wind is is out of the south. We're actually looking just about southwest right now. Check for airplanes and just get ready to go. It'll fly for about 100 minutes, 100 to 110 minutes, which is what, that's 40 to an hour and 40 to an hour and 50 minutes before it bursts. We get most of the useful data comes in within the first 40 minutes, and it's up to about 40,000 feet. That's where the majority of the atmosphere is that we're concerned about for the severe weather. But we keep collecting the data until it gets up to 100,000 feet.
So when we head back inside, we'll be able to start seeing some of the data readings.
That's correct. We'll start seeing the data as it flows right into the computer that we process the balloon on. Once it's all finished, we send that in to the National Center, and that gets ingested with all the other weather balloons so that we can base the computer models, feed that into the computer models, and come up with a better, more accurate forecast, hopefully.